Welcome back to Hard Rock Guy Garage. Today we need to get that into that, so follow me along. So alright guys, it has been a couple weeks since we had a 289 engine build update. If you remember right, I got the valve train finished up. It's now time to put it in the 65. This will be a grand thing if it happens. I have several boxes full of parts. I've got parts on the way from the parts store. The goal for this video is to get this 289 in this Mustang. And the grand goal is get the 289 in this Mustang. We're going to get it shipped out the door here very soon. I know everybody wants to see a grand finale on this car. Nobody wants to see it more than myself. So let's dig into what we're going to have to do and what we got. So I've got my block plate. I've got an assortment of bolts here for the engine. I've got some carburetor studs for our intake. Our bell housing bolts, pressure plate bolts. I got a new set of flywheel bolts right here. A new set of manual transmission small block Ford flywheel bolts. That right there's your part number from Kentucky Mustang. Got a box full of battery cables, fan shroud, you know, radiator hoses, stuff like that. All our clutch linkage. Distributor, alternator brackets, coil, you know, just about everything we're going to need there. We got a new billet steel flywheel from McLeod, 24-pound flavor right there. These are a zero balanced with a removable weight, and they come with 28 and 50 ounce weights. And I got a McLeod Street Pro. This clutch is good to 400 horsepower in the 10-inch flavor like what was in the car. And I can hear you guys now. Why don't you go ahead and upgrade to 10.5 inch, because the 10 inch is a little lighter and it should hold way more power than this little 289 will make. So just to keep it realistic guys, a 289 hypo makes 271 horsepower. I don't expect this 289 to make more than about 300, maybe 325. And that's probably giving it the benefit of the doubt with the thumper camshaft. So the 10-inch clutch will do everything we need, and hopefully that will give him a little lighter pedal pressure and make it easier for him to drive. So the first thing we need to do, I need to get a thermostat and thermostat housing on this engine. I need to get the carburetor studs in it, get these headers off, and then we can take the engine off the engine stand and start getting the block plate and the flywheel and the clutch all put on it. And then after that, it should be ready to shove in there. So let's get to it. So alright guys, let's start off simple here. We're going to start with carburetor studs. A factory 289 hypo is going to have a 1-inch carburetor spacer for, you know, the PVC and for heat with the stock intake. And they use a longer stud like this. With this aftermarket intake that we're putting on the 289, we need to use a shorter stud, because I'm going to bolt the carburetor directly to the intake without a spacer. This is Transdat part number for studs I want to use. I'm just going to thread these in here with my fingers guys until they bottom out and they'll be installed. So hopefully everything goes smoothly today. So I'm going to get these screwed in there and get our engine lift plate bolted on here. I'm going to leave this intake taped up here. That way, when I take our engine lift plate off, I can untape this, put our gasket on it, and put our carburetor back on. So, these I just install them guys. I'll just run them down in there until they're finger tight, and they'll be good to go. And that keeps from pulling any threads. If you try to tighten the stud down tight, it lets it kind of self-center itself in the threads that way, and it puts a lot less stress on the intake itself. So now that the studs are in the intake, we need to move on to more important things like going ahead and getting the thermostat in it, because it'll be easier on a small block Ford to do it outside the car. This is a 160 degree thermostat I got from Summit Racing. Sorry, 180 degree thermostat I got from Summit Racing. Right here is the part number. This is the high flow style, like the old Robert Shaw thermostats. I put these in everything I'm going to use in a performance application. We have a new water neck, which is an ACP part number right here. This is about as close to identical to stock as you can get. It's not concourse by no means, but it is a good new water neck. It does come with bolts, but it comes with some old generic hardware store looking stuff and a crappy looking gasket. So we're going to use these water neck bolts right here. And there's part number up there. So we at least know these are 100% USA made bolts. So I'm going to give you a couple helpful tips installing the thermostat housing. First off, don't use a gasket that looks like that. You see all those raised ridges and mess all around it, and you see that's all bent up and bad shape. That's not never going to work right. Right here I have a new Felpro one. This one we're going to use. But the biggest thing with a small block Ford is these are bad about slipping out and falling down and getting down here, and you bolt your thermostat housing down and you wonder why it leaks. So what I do, guys, I will take some weather strip adhesive and I will just put me a little bit in here where the thermostat sits. It ain't got to be a lot or a big amount of it. We all know weather strip adhesive can get a little messy sometimes. So I'm just going to take my finger and kind of spread it around in there and wipe it off the outside there. So these high flow thermostats got a little jiggle valve in them. It's a little brass valve. You can see it up there at the top. That valve needs to point straight up. So what I'll do, I will take and put our thermostat in there and just kind of twist it a little bit, kind of let that weather strip adhesive kind of disperse in there. And I'll come back in here and I'll wipe our thermostat housing off. And I'll let that sit about 5 minutes. And then I'll take a little ultra black RTV. And I'm not going to put much, guys, just a little bit on our thermostat housing. All this stuff's new, so it should have a good flat surface. But this is just a little extra back up, and as you can see, I'm super thin here, just in case. It's also going to give me enough to, if we have a little squish out, it'll let me turn the edge of that gasket black so the bright blue don't stand out. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to put our gasket on there like this. I'm going to make sure that we have enough sealing surface. And that's what you got to watch with some of these aftermarket gaskets, guys, right here. They'll be thin and they won't seal. So I'm going to take a little bit more right here on my finger. And like I said, guys, small amount. I'm just going to lightly rub the back side of this gasket. And what that does, it's going to help this gasket. It's going to kind of permeate these fibers in this gasket. And it's going to keep that paper gasket from naturally wanting to weep water. So it's not a bad idea. You don't have to do it. You can put it on there dry with new stuff. I'll probably not have an issue. Me, I don't like to do stuff 2 or 3 times, so I'll do it this way. And sometimes your gasket will kind of slide around. So I just want to make sure. I will go ahead and just kind of paint the edge of that gasket a little bit there. It don't even really have enough to hold the gasket onto the housing, as you can see. Very transparent. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take our thermostat housing and our new bolts. I'm going to put our new bolts through here, and that'll just keep our gasket located. And I know I got some RTV smears up here. We're fixing to take care of those. But a 302 and 289 are very tight up here in the water pump to thermostat housing area. So that's the importance of gluing that thermostat in there. With a Windsor, you got a little more leeway as far as being able to make sure you don't knock it out of the thermostat housing once you put it in there. But on a 8.2 deck motor, you just don't have that luxury. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get this in here. Get those bolts ran down with my finger, and I'm going to look down through here and make sure our thermostat hasn't slipped, even though I know ours isn't. And another thing, it is much easier just to do these with a wrench. You're not going to get a socket on the bottom. So if you use a wrench, at least you can make sure your torque is equal on both sides. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run these down until our lock washers are flat. Try to do that as evenly as possible to keep from hurting our gasket. And then I'm going to come in here and just snug these things down. They don't have to be He-Man tight, but you just want them good and snug. You want to see that RTV kind of squish out. You want to make sure they're tight, but you don't want to strip your intake out or break your water neck or bust that gasket. So what I'll do now, I'll take a clean towel, I'll clean this up, and I'll be right back. And our thermostat is installed. And before I get too wild and take this off stand, I'm going to put a new pivot ball on it right there. So this is what the new pivot ball looks like. You can see it's still got the felt washer to help seal the grease in there to keep it from getting dirt and wearing this plastic bushing out. So the part number from that, from Kentucky Mustang, is right here. It's a 3218 SKU number. This fits both your small block and your 6 cylinders. So super simple to install, guys. You're just going to unscrew the old one like that. You're going to screw your new one in and tighten it down. Don't get much simpler than that. So at least gives me a little peace of mind that it's going to make the clutch linkage work as new. Alright, so the engine is on the cherry picker. I got the engine stand liberated. It's time to go ahead and put your new pilot bushing in. This is a new one. It's time to put your dowel pins in. When you take your block to the machine shop, it's going to come back without these, so make sure that you have them before you even attempt to put the engine in the car. So right now what I'm doing, I am putting a new clutch fork boot and a new throwout bearing. I don't know if you can hear that one. These greasable bearings, guys, as you can see, it's very greasy all around it. What they do, they sling grease everywhere. This is one of those cases where if you grease this, you need to make 100% sure you do not over grease it, because if you over grease it, you're going to have issues. But this new one is good and smooth. I will probably shoot just a touch in it, but maybe not even a quarter of a pump, just a little bit. Because like I said, if you over grease it, it's going to sling grease all over your clutch, inside your bell housing down there. And you also want to inspect your clutch fork for cracks. I cleaned this one up and I sprayed a little paint on it. It was pretty rusty. But you want to look in these areas up in here, and in these areas right here, and you want to look for any kind of cracking or any kind of damage in this clutch fork itself. This one appears to be in very decent shape, surprising with addition to the rest of the car. So what I'll do before I put the throwout bearing on, guys, I will put this little anti-seize, this right here, on the tips of these. And then your throwout bearing will just clip on. So what that anti-seize will do, it'll help lubricate that pivot point right there without washing off. So got that installed. I have a new dust boot right here, SKU number 471 from Kentucky Mustang, and this is going to go in your bell housing to help keep any kind of dirt and contaminants out of your clutch. And it's going to clip in your bell housing right here in this square. and then your clutch fork is going to slide up inside this right here. So let me get this stuff installed. And we're going to come in here. We're going to clean this input shaft. We're going to clean where our throwout bearing rides. We're going to clean this pivot out right here. And we're just going to spray out the inside of the bell housing with a little brake cleaner. And once it's clean, it should look something like that. I know it's not spotless, but it's way better and a lot less oily than it was before. You can see all the oil and clutch dust down there in the floor. So I'm going to put a little anti-seize on our bearing retainer right here. Put a little bit on our splines and a little bit on our pivot right here. Alright, got our clutch fork throwout bearing and our boot on down there. So what I done, like I said, you leave your shaft, put that on there. These early forks have a wire clip, and you got to make sure it is on its little notch back there. They're a little fiddly sometimes. If they won't go, make sure you don't have it on backwards. The rubber boot just pops in the bell housing in there and slides on the clutch fork. Since this one does have the place for the return spring, I split it a little bit to give it room to come through. But at this point, we're ready to get the stuff on the engine over here. So we need to get the flywheel and the clutch installed on that. And then we should be ready to put that into this hole. Alright, I got our flywheel and our clutch and stuff opened up and verified their bolt patterns and all will work. This is a zero balance flywheel. They have removable counterweights and they come with a 28 and a 50 ounce weight. That bolts on the back side right here. You can see it over there. I have red Loctite those bolts and tightened them down, so they should be good to go. I'm putting an SFI billet steel flywheel on this thing because I don't know if you guys have ever seen a flywheel explode. It is not a good thing at all. And his original flywheel over here looks like a tortoise shell, and it feels like a tortoise shell. Along with the clutch that was in it, it's all burned up. So that stuff is not going back in there. So got our new McLeod Street Pro clutch here. All this stuff looks like it's going to work together just fine with a flywheel. I've got a new set of flywheel bolts with the sealer on them right here from AMK. SKU number 306 from Kentucky Mustang. This fits manual and automatic transmissions, but only fit the automatics if they have the reinforcement plate on your flex plate. So I'm going to get this flywheel bolt on. I am going to torque it to 65 foot-pounds, and we'll get ready to put the clutch on it. And we should be ready to sit this thing down in the car at that point. Alright, got the flywheel on there and torqued. Also, don't forget your block plate back there either. Anytime you got a new flywheel or clutch pressure plate, you want to clean off these metal surfaces with brake cleaner. Just make sure there's no oil, because the oils will keep this stuff from seating. It could make your clutch shatter. So just repeat this on both sides, guys. You don't have to wash the whole thing off. Just anywhere where you're fixing material, just like you're doing, if you've done a brake rotor, you want to make sure that the surfaces are clean. Just for, see how dirty it was? Just for seating properties. And if you happen to have some scratches, make sure you can run your finger across them and you don't feel them. If you do, you can take a little file and kind of knock any high edges off. So we're going to get this pressure plate bolted on there. Need to make sure your clutch disc is turned the right way. The thick part will always face away from the flywheel. So it'll be in your pressure plate like that right there. And they do come with an install tool. And our clutch and flywheel is installed. Our pressure plate bolts are torqued to 25 foot-pounds. You want to make sure your clutch alignment tool slides in and out very easily. If it doesn't, loosen your pressure plate back up until it gets to this point. Then re-torque them. Well, the engine is in, and all the bell housing bolts are in it. So tomorrow I'm going to come in here, I'm going to put the motor mount bolts in it, starter on it, see if we can get the headers, and we'll see how much stuff we can get done in this video itself. But hopefully we can start making some big leaps and bound progress now, and the car don't sit like a four-wheel drive anymore, so that's always positive too. So it's come down quite a bit. What do you think? Huh? You get the motor in your car? Huh? You want to remind them about your merchandise down your store and your new Cartoon Daisy stickers and t-shirts? If you use the code DAISY, guys, you can save 10% off any of our merchandise down in our store. That's going to be down there below. So finally, stuff's starting to kind of go a little smooth. The engine went in here pretty easily, so that was positive. So like I said, I'm going to come in here tomorrow and we're going to start seeing what we can get bolted on this thing and try to knock as much of the mass load of things and get some of these boxes and stuff that's sitting around the shop out of the shop. Because we got a big bunch of work to do on my 66 again, so I need to get some space cleaned up because we got a big problem and a few days to fix it. Well, this next morning I come in here and I'm test fitting these tri-wire headers, make sure they're going to clear everything. Both these actually went in from the top up here. Pressure side goes in with the spark plugs in it. I had to take these spark plugs out of the driver's side because that's the tight side on one of these cars. We're pretty close to the shock tower on this second tube back. I think a little small dimple won't hurt right there. It don't hit, and the header's not bolted up, so it's hanging off the head. It may very well, when it's tightened up, pull up out of the way. It looks like it might. But so far, the tri-wire headers fit pretty good. I mean, especially to be a cheap header, guys. These are Flash Shark Racing headers. They're very cheap. I'll put a link down there in the description. But we're going to have plenty of room for our Z-bar, it looks like, back there. And they clear, I mean, everything pretty well. Like I said, this is loose, and you could stick a, you know, something about an 1/8 inch thick between that second tube and the tower. But other than that, they fit pretty good. They look like they got great clearance around the spark plug wires areas. So it's not going to be a big deal to get plugs in and out of it. So this side, you know, are about the same clearance wise. I know it looks like it's hitting right there, but it's not. You get about 1/8 of an inch clearance, maybe 1/4 down through there. You can see the light and the dirt on the shock tower. So let me get these things bolted up and we'll see what the clearance looks like. So I jumped ahead here a little bit in the background, but I got the headers bolted up. I did have to dimple the front of the number 2 tube and flatten the side a little bit of the number 2 tube on the driver's side. Same here, the first and second cylinders. So cylinder 1 and 2 right here, I had to flatten it a little bit to get the clearance a little bit wider, that shock tower, so it wouldn't rattle against it. Not major by any means, but I did tap that area right there, and on the other side I got the spark plugs in it. I went ahead and put his starter back on it down there that was on this engine. It was new, so it should be all right. And something that would have been impossible for me to film is installing this Z-bar and pivots and all that stuff, but I've got the Z-bar and return spring and everything on it down there. So, and I also went ahead and bolted the carburetor down and took tape off the intake. That way that's sealed up and bolted down, and you know, it looks a lot better in hindsight. And another thing I went ahead and done, I put that little bypass hose on there with the factory style tower clamps right there. So guys, there's going to be some stuff to kind of get skimmed over. If there's something you want to know more about, let me know down in the comments. But I'm trying to make as much progress as I can, because I've still got to fix my 66 and time's running out. So the more progress I can make on the 65 to getting it closer to start, the better off I am. But I'm trying to come in here and cover some of the highlights of things that people may have trouble on, and I'm fixing to start on another one, which is I'm going to put this alternator harness and bracket on the engine. So this is the alternator I got. This is a 75 amp 1G in a natural finish right here. So this is a little bit better than the stock alternator. The 65 doesn't have anything aftermarket other than the radio, so this should be more than sufficient for it. Also got a new set of alternator brackets because his old ones were rusty and kind of bent up and been drilled on. The alternator bracket part number is SKU number 601. I've got the new bolts and spacer. The SKU number for it is 17738. And we have our new alternator wiring harness, which is SKU number 21972. So let's get this stuff opened up and see if we can't get it on the car. And got the alternator and all bolted on there. Your pivot bracket's going to bolt to this tall boss and sticks out your water pump right here. There'll be a spacer that goes behind the bracket down here in the lower location. Got our two bolts in, our spacer and our dipstick. This aftermarket dipstick kind of comes out in an angle, which is fine, just not necessarily correct. It should come straight up. So the only thing else I got left to do down here alternator wise is put the ground wire on the block ground when I put the battery cables on it. So I need to dig out the crank pulley and compare it with our new one. We need to get our new water pump pulley, or our old water pump pulley, cleaned up and painted. And now the alternator's done, we need to move on to the crank pulley situation. This is the pulley it had on it. This looks like an AC and power steering lower pulley. This car has neither. This pulley also weighs almost 8 pounds. It's like 7 pounds 6 ounces or something like that. So I got this ACP pulley right here, this Kentucky Mustang SKU number. This is for the single groove lower crank pulley. It looks fairly well made, and looks like it's going to line up with the groove our alternator belt originally run off of, which is the bottom one. And I'm going to use these AMK crank pulley bolts. F509 is the part number on those, and get this bolted on there. And that crank pulley fits fine, along with the water pump pulley that was on it. When you hold all this stuff up, everything appears to line up correctly, so shouldn't be no issues there. And it looks a lot better with that big old giant pulley down there on the bottom, and saves a little weight. Daisy's in here being wild this morning. You a wild kitty cat? Huh? Wild kitty cat. So guys, we made some pretty good progress in this video. So it won't be long now, we'll hear 65 Mustang run, and I'll continue working on it in our next video. And we'll try to get the radiator hoses and all that stuff on it, and get the distributor and all those other things, little small issues addressed. So if you haven't yet, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because it does help the channel to grow. If you are a subscriber, I greatly appreciate you guys, and I look forward to everybody's comments down below. So until our next video on the 65, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.